Hey there, Shadow and Flamers, long time no see. Got a little bit of a different idea for a video today. I've had it in the bag, I guess, for quite a while. A few years ago, I was given a very unique opportunity to purchase something quite rare, and that being some of the original green stuff sculpts that were made for the Middle-earth miniatures range from Games Workshop. Now these are all sculpted by hand by Gary Morley, who very kindly thought of me when it came time for him to move them on. Right, so I've had these in my possession for a few years now, and I've examined them several times. The sculptor in me appreciates the art and the intricacy of some of them, which you'll get to see shortly. So with that in mind, here's my collection of Gary Morley green stuff sculpts. Okay, so first up we've got Saruman and Grima Wormtongue. Okay, you can see how you used metal bars or pins for the pole. That looks like a previously cast head of the staff from one of the earlier versions of Saruman, presumably, but it's just really interesting to see the detail on the face. I think that's a really good likeness of Saruman as he appears in the movies. So yeah, definitely one of the better sculpts, and Grima too. I've always been a fan of this one. Just oozing character. Just the way the folds are in the cloth. And that fur. The intricate lattice work on the arms. And that kind of like greasy hair coming over the face. That's a fantastic model, which of course got packaged together in the limited edition box set back in the Two Towers days. Obviously this has been resculpted and reissued since then, but yeah, I think these two are classic. Right, let's have a look at Sam and Bill the Pony. Now you can see, obviously these are resin masters that have been converted using green stuff, so it's not a scratch sculpt in any means, but it just goes to show how previous sculpts were adapted in the range. But it's a great job on the packing on Bill the Pony there. All those bags and rolled up knapsacks. Great, full of character. Also been resculpted, I believe, in the more recent. Okay, so I'm a fan of elves, as some of you may know. I've got a high elven cosplay that I wear occasionally, which weighs a ton, by the way, but that's the armour there. So we've got Celeborn with a separate shield. Again, that's a resin master of one of the Rivendell ones that's been reworked, I believe. And just the chainmail detail on that front cloak Fantastic. Sleeves. Awesome. Great stuff. And we've got High King himself, Gil-galad. Now his spear tip is missing now. No, it's not missing, it's just off. You can tell that they used, or Gary used rather, it's just a basic Rivendell spear with some extra fancy pattern sculpted on to make it more gloss. I think that's how you pronounce it, could be wrong. Again though, the chainmail is just exquisite. Okay, and it's amazing how much more detailed these characters look in the original greens. I don't know if that's just because of the way the light's bouncing off the colour. Then, you know, the finished metal casts, these just sort of oozing detail, like around the back of the head there. Great stuff. And of course, gone to the added effort of writing the names of all these characters on the slaughter basis too. So next up we've got a couple of Elronds. And we've got the one in his war gear here. It's minus the blade, because what you'll find is once the master's been used and moulded, they'll utilise different parts from it on other models. So some of these originals have missing parts purely for that reason. Okay, and obviously this is the one in his Rivendell robes. I like the detail on the hair on this one. Again, the face looks much better on the greens than what I remember from the metal model. But there you go, Elrond. Alright, so we've got the original Glorfindel, foot and mounted. Of course, these days there's a juicy Forge World one available. What I notice about these is the blades are that much longer than the regular elves. Okay, so that was noticeable. But again, lots of detail. You can just about make out some of the wire armature leading into the horse's mouth there. That was sculpted over. Obviously, as a sculptor myself, I appreciate these more than probably the average person, and that's what attracted me to buying them in the first place. But yeah, so here we see that's obviously a resin head that's been cast from the mounted version, just to save time and duplicating, and obviously to keep some consistency with the mounted versions. Okay, we've got the twins, Elladan and Elrohir. Again, the blades have been borrowed for something else, presumably. Again, the chainmail is one of the things that impresses me the most on Gary sculpts. Again, the faces don't actually look too bad on the original greens. I know they get a bit of a bad rap, these boys, but when you actually have the originals, you just see the work that's actually gone into them. Again, like the gauntlets, just the detail in there. Great stuff. Okay, so now we come to the armoured version of the twins, which came out a bit later. I think these are slightly smaller than the originals, the unarmoured ones. So a little bit more keeping in the Lord of the Rings scale. I guess the other two were a little bit larger than life, shall we say. A bit of scale creep keeping in. But these two are much more faithful. But you can see through the moulding process how, you know, they're trying to be kept flat for ease of casting. So they're not very 3D. And that's the issue with single part miniatures. Okay. And obviously later on it got a bit more adventurous, where you had to glue an arm on or something on some of the later sculpts and characters, just to give them a bit more variety and give the sculptors some freedom in the poses that they were able to do. Great stuff. Love the armour. Now here we've got one of the mounted twins. I forget which one this is. I always get them muddled up. But yeah, obviously a resin horse. You can see where it's been cut away. With the resin pieces as well. How do we say? Multi-part miniatures, just so you can get more 3D poses, especially on a four-legged creature. Again, decent face. These faces, you just sort of appreciate them much more. Seeing the original, the actual miniatures that were in the hands of the sculptors. Okay, so we're going to move on to the elven spearmen, the Rivendell spearmen. So you can see there's the spear itself, the generic shield, okay, and then we've got two bodies. Okay, so you've got all the intricate armour on there. Yeah, slightly different with the folds, give it a bit of variety. And then from that, these were moulded to get resin masters, so that the rest of the miniatures could be cast. And then it's just a case of sculpting the arms on and the capes, which is a lot quicker than sculpting the whole miniature. So you can see just speeding up the whole process. Yeah, these ones have even got cast metal heads, so they must have done a spin mould of those at some point. Yeah, I don't think I've got a mini that had the original head. These are all cast heads, but still great stuff. Right, next up we've got the High Elven Commanders. So we've got the captain with shield and Elven Blade. And of course there was a version of this which is unreleased that had the spear, which was basically the same mini, obviously with a spear cast instead. But you can see how they using a resin shield again, which was cast from the master one, and again it's a metal head and blade this time. Okay, and the banner bearer, we've got a resin blade, steel pole, a resin body, and then putty for the flag and the robes. And on the elven theme, we've got Haldir here. We've got the one with the sword, which I think was the original. And then they brought out another one with the bow. Okay, this one has a resin bow, presumably cast from one of the other monsters. And it's just been, you use an existing model as the base and just skinned over the top of it with the new robes for Haldir. So that's Haldir. Right, so this is a Lothlorien elf, bowman. Obviously the head's gone, so that's been used for something else, but the rest of it remains. And what impressed me about this one in particular was the fletchings on the arrow. I think that's a cracking job. Okay, so we've got the Lothlorien commander. Again, impressive arrows. It's got a resin sword and a metal bow. Okay, and he goes with, this is a bit of a gem because it's the Unreleased banner bearer. Now this model appears on, I think it's the cover of, what supplement was it? Fall of the Necromancer, I think it was called. And it's two-part, obviously. That had a flag that you attached afterwards. Right. Now I wonder if the reason for this not making it into production, there were some cast, he had some resin masters made. Went to the paint studio, or at least one of them did. Because it's a very unnatural pose, this. If you tried to recreate this with your own elbows, just try and hold a long pole like that with your elbow up in front of your chin and your hand down. It's not easy. So perhaps that's why you didn't quite make it. And we ended up with a different version, but still. Just the rarity of owning this piece. The fact that it was never put into full production is quite an honour. So one of the first minis available for the Two Towers was of course Gandalf the White on Shadowfax. Okay, we've got his staff here as well. Yeah, I remember I think this came, I got mine with the Partworks magazine, Battle Games in Middle-earth. I think it was one of the specials. That's how I acquired mine. But again, the face. That just screams Gandalf to me. And again, it's one of Carrie's better character sculpts, I think. You can see even you've got the little location holes and the pins have been sculpted on for the post-production for a sub-assembly. But yeah, great stuff. Let's see some bad guys, shall we? So these are the Mordor orc trackers, which I think are full of character. I wish I'd bought more of them in hindsight back in the day and just got some converted up. Just great character driven minis. Yeah, lots on these. They're quite busy little models for orcs. The blades. Nice. Interesting, you actually use some cast arrow fletchings on this one. Because speaking from experience, I know they're a little bit of a pain to sculpt. Well, not pain to sculpt, they're just quite intricate and labour intensive, I guess. Right, next up we've got some Haradrim commanders. Is that the chieftain? It says Lord on the base, but again the little dangly necklace bits and pieces. Even the detail on the cover of the hand there. Obviously there's a hole in the back here for this. Okay, you can see that was a wire armature that's had bit sculpted onto it, and with the pin that sticks in the back. And we've got some blade tips here as well. There's one for that one, and there's one for the burner man. He's got a little blade tip too. Yeah, their little turbans, masks. Very impressive. And lastly, we've got half a rider and about 3/4 of one. So this one's got the bow missing. And the top half of this one has obviously been reused elsewhere. Okay, Corsair Arbalistas. Only got 2 shields for some reason, but then I think that's because of the way that's a blank one and this one has an arm attached. So obviously the one with the arm goes on this fella, and the guys that have already got their arms would get a version of this. It should have been casted out twice. That's why. So, interesting, they used a different type of putty here, and it's white, like a milli putt. But again, lots of great detail in the faces. I'm impressed. I'm impressed with the faces in particular. Right, the old Twilight Ringwraiths. These are nice miniatures. Obviously not a must-have back in the day. A nice to have for collectors. I only appear to have one set of we call it helmet attachments, I guess. This one not included, but nonetheless still nice to have. Witch King, creepy. Really freaked me out. First time I saw that scene in the movie. Alright, here we got Sharku on foot. I don't have him on mount, but I think I'd rather have this one because he was always a lot rarer to find, even in the cast up versions. I think because the mounted Sharku originally came in the Wild Riders box, or the attack, what was it? Wild Attack box, was that a thing? And yeah, this was always a lot more tricky because when it got repackaged with him and the mount, everyone already had the mount, so everyone was trying to get him on his own. That's a good one, that. You can actually, let's have a look at his face here. So we can see the detail on that, because he's known for his scarred face. Yeah, good stuff. Now, this is the original assassin for the Haradrim. Interesting that the face in this one appears to have been taken off a previously painted miniature. I've not seen that before, I've not noticed it. So that's fascinating. Because obviously with a layer of paint you lose a little bit of detail, but I guess it was that thin and you can hardly see it. I thought they'd get away with it. Interesting. Alright. Mounted Isildur. Again, I like that one. Interesting, he got a mount. His fellow Numenoreans didn't. Okay, so that's a two-part. Been held together with a bit of blue tack. Interesting. I've actually taken them apart before. Yeah, obviously there is a scene where he's attacked and ambushed while on horseback with his Numenorean riders, but they never got a profile. Oddly, he did. Yeah, Elrond didn't. And I'm not sure he ever will. Now that there's a new version. Gold thimble, foot and mounted. Now he obviously got rebranded as an orc general later in the day, and they decided they couldn't actually have Gold thimble as a licensed character. No, he just came packaged with a regular plastic warg, if you remember. That's why he's got no mount. But he's quite a fun mini. His teeth. Okay, we've got the mouth of Sauron. Okay. He's got his little pointy finger. Now, fun fact, there's an unreleased version of this where he's actually holding his hand up, like to say stop. I don't have the original green of that one though, unfortunately. I do have a copy of it, but that's a different video. But you can see some of the detail in the strapping here. It's great. And the different textures and the armour. It's all very intricate and impressive. Castellans. Again, we've got one head, and we've got the other two that are minus their heads. So obviously they got taken off and cast up separately. But they do still have their blades, which are metal. Again, I think these were from Fall of the Necromancer as well. But don't quote me on that. My memory's not quite what it used to be. Okay, we've got the original halberd with banner. Some more excellent chainmail. Decent face. I like it because he sort of really fits in with the other Dunedain models in the range. And of course the pole's in two pieces these days. Things did get damaged as they were taking out the moulds, but still. And just a detail on the flag itself. Very good, both sides of course. For those of us who struggle to paint emblems on banners, the raised pattern was a godsend. Alright, we've got some Gondorians now. This was the is this the bolt thrower crew? I think it is. Yeah, because the trebuchet crew had a guy with two hands and no weapons, I'm sure. So, yeah, but again, you can see like they had a master of the head and the torso, which has been reused over and over, and just the rest of the minis factored in. This one's got the blade missing, obviously used on something else. The original Radagast miniature. Some prefer it to the version that we saw in the Hobbit movies. Obviously that got re-sculpted accordingly, but I still think this is a great mini. In particular the bird on his hand. Just the detail in that. Can we go a bit close up? Very, very good. Just a realistic face as well. That's a banging face. That's such quality. Alright, we've got a couple of Rangers of the North. This one's obviously missing his head and his arm, which will have been used on something else. But this one's virtually intact, apart from, I presume, was a blade in there, or sword. Great stuff. Now, I think this was the original, or the very first Saruman that made available to us back in Fellowship of the Ring. He's obviously holding the Palantir there. Still a good face, not quite as good as the first one we saw, I don't think, in terms of likeness, but pretty good. And there's the original sculpted head of the staff, which we saw was cast up for use on that later mini. And you've got the Palantir itself. Awesome. Next up, we've got some Watchers of Karna. Interesting, this one even has the feeder sprue, I guess you'd call it, ready for the moulding process, so that the metal on the spin mould could flow in through the feet and down this little feeder valve into the blade. Otherwise it would have been going the wrong way on the centrifugal mould. So that's interesting. Some good details on the back. Again, these are a little bit big, so the scale's creeping up a little bit on these watchers compared to the Haradrim plastic sprue. These are quite a lot bigger, but still nice miniatures. And we got some rangers. Got half a bow there. So this one has a head. This one doesn't have a head, or any arms for that matter. And this one looks to be complete, again with a feeder sprue in the bottom. Alright, we've got the original Faramir, which first came about in the Two Towers. Face is good. I like the straps as well on the arms there. I know what a pain they can be from experience. And the intricate arrow, what do you call it? My mind's gone blank. Well, the back bit of the arrow's going. So this is the Arwen with Frodo mounted. It's a resin horse. Again, I like the hair. That's great. Frodo's looking good. And this, looking at this up close, it's not actually that bad a face for Liv Tyler. I know the foot version gets a lot of flack, but I don't think, looking at it in my hand now, that's not actually that bad. Yeah, I think he's been given a rough time over that, unnecessarily, but obviously it did get a resculpt, and I don't think there's much of an argument. Most people agree the latter was the better sculpt of Liv Tyler, in her Arwen costume, but still, definitely not as bad as most people say. What we've got here, oh, this is Imrahil, leader of Dol Amroth, or Prince of Dol Amroth, shall I say. So, obviously the head and arm have been taken off of this foot model and put on to the mounted version. Okay, lots of robe and cloth detail on these Swan Knights. Decent detail on the emblem there for the shield. Very good. Alright, next up we've got many Swan Knight bits and pieces. So we've got a master shield there. We've got a resin cast from it with the emblem sculpted on. We've got horse heads. We've got torsos of, we've got a right arm for shields. We've got a Swan Knight head, and he's got a lot of criticism back in the day, I remember. Interested in use brown stuff for the actual wings, because they because it sets rigid. The green stuff, it has a little bit more flexibility even when it's set. But that's a decent sculpt. It's just very, the aesthetic of it was very, very Warhammery, with the pointy helmets and oversized wings. And then we've got some foot bits and pieces here. Let's lose that. So yeah, so we've got some foot stuff, swords, more arms, and then we've got a couple of lances. So yeah, that's the Dol Amroth bits and pieces. Right, almost there now. Just got a few spares. So we've got what looks to be Boromir's shield, done in Milliput. We look like this is the Orthanc Saruman arms for some reason. I'm not sure where the rest of them is, but I don't own him. We've also got a sword. I'm not quite sure, I don't recognise what mini that's from either, but it's a tasty sword. And turns out I do have one of the high elven helmets. You can see the intricate nature on the helm there. Unfortunately the crest is missing, but yeah, that's the original elven head, which you see the casts of on all the earlier miniatures. Now I've saved the best one, or my favourite, till last anyway, because this is the unreleased Queen Beruthiel. Now this was taken from a piece of artwork. I'm not sure who the artist was actually for that, but it is literally straight from that piece of artwork. Lots of fur on these robes. No, I think the reason why she wasn't ever put into production is because they didn't quite have the rights for this particular character at the time. So unfortunately she never saw the light of day. There were the two cats that are pictured in that artwork were also sculpted by Gary. I don't have the original greens here, but I do have casts of them, which I'll show. I'll go through all my rare unreleased miniatures in another video, another day. But yeah, so that's the last of my greens. Obviously it's hard enough to find this miniature out in the world. There's obviously a lot of recasts around these days, but this is the original, the actual model that was sculpted in hand, just like I'm holding now, with green stuff putty and some sculpting tools over a metal armature. And that to me is pretty special. There you go, that's my collection of Gary Morley greens from the original Lord of the Rings miniature game. During the movie era. I want to say movie, the movie trilogy, so Fellowship, Two Towers, Return of the King. Well, there you go. I hope you enjoyed looking at those greens as I have done over the years. I think the time has come, and the reason I released this video now is because I'm looking to move them on to a high-end collector. Hopefully, well, not hopefully, it will be a lot purchase. I want to try and keep it all together. But these cost me a lot of money. We're talking several thousands of pounds. So if you've got that kind of budget and you're interested, then get in contact and we'll see what we can do. Alright, take care guys. Thank you.